we just spend a lot of time waiting around. So many of the most powerful answers do come from taking action, and either you like something or you don't. Either way, it's helpful feedback. Either you go for it and it's the thing that you could keep pursuing for X amount of time until you change your damn mind. We're robbing ourselves of so much fulfillment and joy and purpose and all the things that so many of us are like craving in our life, connection, that we're waiting around for someone else to tell us that it's a good idea. So write your own permission slip and stop waiting around.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 410 with guest Kacia Fitzgerald. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. Happy October for all you fall-loving people or Halloween-loving people. I love this time of year. And I also am loving this time of year because starting on October 15th, we are opening up registration for the confidence course. The Make Some Noise confidence course is coming. It is going to be an 8-week extravaganza. Not to sound dramatic. I'm excited about this because it's been so long since I have facilitated a group program like this and by myself. I co-hosted the writing experience with my friend Amy Ehlers, but I don't very often teach programs all by my lonesome. I'm really excited about this because we're going through each and every chapter of Make Some Noise. And I love being able to dig in with all of you as we're doing right now in the free book club for Make Some Noise. For those of you that are a part of it, it's so fantastic to hear your unique situations and how you're coming up on obstacles and challenges as you try to make more noise in your life. So I'm super pumped for this. If you go to andreaowen.com/confidence, that's where the info page will be and you can sign up. If you're already on my email subscription list, then you'll see the emails. But sometimes they go to that promotions folder in Gmail and you never see them. Happens to me all the time. I open up that inbox and I'm like, oh my God. There's so much in here. So if you want to be a part of it, y'all, it's $97. I'm keeping it super affordable. I want as many people to be able to come in as possible to have the community too. That's one of the biggest takeaways of these programs is the community of women that gather to talk about their wins and celebrations and their unique challenges. It's so nice to know that you're not the only one, right? It's so nice to know that. So andreaowen.com/confidence, or you can grab the link in the show notes for this particular episode. I also just want to say a big heartfelt thank you to all of you who've purchased Make Some Noise and who are reading it and tagging me on social media. And those of you who have left reviews on Amazon and Audible and Goodreads especially. Those are probably the 3 main ones that people look at the most, and they matter so much. It's so much to authors. It matters to people who are thinking about purchasing the book or, listening to it on Audible. And it matters to publishers. At the end of the day, it matters. So I really, truly appreciate those of you that have taken the time to do that. And if you haven't, again, Amazon, especially if you bought it from Amazon, because it comes up as a verified purchase, it makes a difference, or Audible, and Goodreads, if you are a fan of Goodreads. And if you're not, I love Goodreads. It's an app, and I just love keeping track of all the books that I want to read. That's the main reason I use it. And I like following some of the authors that I read, and as well as read some reviews over there. But people are pretty serious on Goodreads. Like, they make it a career of writing these long, well thought out reviews. It's kind of amazing. Anyway, thank you again for that. And I'm pumped because Kacia is on the show today. I've been on her podcast a couple of times. This young woman is so incredible. You'll hear me talk about how I want to adopt her as my little sister in the show. And so for those of you that don't know her, let me tell you a little bit about Kacia. Kacia is a life enthusiast and the energetic host of the top-rated podcast, EmpowerHER, with over 2 million downloads in the first 2 years. She's also the founder and CEO of Goescompany, which is designed to empower women with the tools and community so they will never have to go alone. She Goes has global membership community full of side hustlers and entrepreneurs all across the globe in an intimate podcasting course that helps 20 women a month launch their podcasts. So without further ado, here is Kacia. Kacia Fitzgerald is finally on the show.
I'm so excited to be here, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped.
I was flipping through Instagram and I saw one of your so super energetic posts and was like, why have I not had Kacia on the show? I told you when I was on your show a couple years ago that I wanted to adopt you as my little sister.
And I was so honored, and I will gladly take that any day. Thank you.
I love your energy and I know that everybody else will too. So let's jump in. And I was trolling your Instagram and I love these little blue Post-it notes that you put up on your mirror and you take a picture of your smiling face. And one that's recent as we were recording this that jumped out at me that I am obsessed with is you said, worrying is literally betting against yourself. So can you say a little bit more about that? And what was there some moment that you had where you decided to write that down and post it?
Yeah, I think so often, we've got a precious amount of brain power, right? And energy to put towards anything. And what I catch myself doing is when I'm worrying about things, if I think about it, most often the things that I've worried about in the past, they didn't actually happen. And it's like I can spend that energy worrying and playing out hypothetical negative situations and starting to think about like, well, what could happen if this doesn't work out the way that I thought, or this doesn't work out the way that I thought, but I can't control the outcomes of so much. And the only thing that I can control is the thoughts that I'm thinking, which then drives my behavior and my action and my perception of the world at large. So it feels like I'm betting against my own ability to control my thoughts. And that's something that I know I can do no matter what's going on in the world around me. So for me, we're about to make a really big change in our life. My fiance is a dentist, and he's actually going to be coming to join me in my business to help with a couple of projects that we're working on. Big change, obviously playing out a lot of
So he's going to retire from dentistry?
So he's going to basically go into volunteering with dentistry. And then he's going to probably do more outreach type of stuff. But he went to school for, a lot of time to become a dentist, got into this field, liked it, but isn't sure if it's the right career path for him. I think he's realizing that a lot of people's anxiety that they project onto their dentist is just kind of wearing on him of being in that type of a role. And he's like, gosh, I just love business. And I'd love to help you. We've got a couple of ideas of things that we want to work on together. He's got a lot of ideas of things he wants to do. And naturally, with any change that's happening, there's certain emotions that come up of oh my gosh, how are we going to navigate this?
Sure.
All of the things that have come in with that. In the past, I've supported both of us financially when he was going through dental school. So I had to almost just remind myself and just keep regrounding in this idea that it's I get to control how I think about this. And this is something that we're really excited about. And I'll let myself feel the full human experience of, those thoughts that come in. They're oh my gosh, am I capable of this? Is this a good idea? But at the root of it, it's I believe in my ability to figure it out. And I extra believe in my ability to figure it out with this person. So let's go. Right. So it's kind of a reminder to myself, but also to other people too.
Yeah. I love everything about that. And I had a woman on my podcast. I coach people on the show every once in a while, and her name's Melissa. I can drop that link in the show notes. And we were talking about confidence and taking action and that whole topic. And that's one of the things that I was emphasizing to her is always bet on yourself. And I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was early on in my personal development journey. There was a woman mentor. Who knows? Maybe I saw it on Pinterest or an inspirational quote. But that struck me so much. And hearing women talk about, you're going to face so many obstacles, and there are going to be people who bet against you. And, I think especially women in marginalized communities, like they walk into rooms and face even more obstacles than you and I would face. So all that being said, it's like, it can help so much if you bet on yourself, and confidence is a bigger topic that we can talk more about, because there's something else that you like to talk about too, that I think is directly related to confidence. And you said, don't confuse inexperience with inability.
Yeah.
So can you say more about that?
For sure. So I think a lot of times, like, why I'm willing to bet on myself, and a lot of people can probably say this that feel as if they're confident too, is because I make the act of building confidence and building belief in myself just part of like my day-to-day life. So every single day that I'm showing up to life, I'm like, okay, what do I need to actually do today to move the needle forward? What are the tiny little things that are easy to do, but are also easy not to do? And how can I be the woman that actually does those things, so that every single time that I'm showing up and doing the thing that I said I was going to do, I'm putting essentially a deposit into my confidence bucket, right? So then I'm going into anything, whether it's something that I've never done before. I know 100% that if I'm starting something for the first time, that I'm not going to be very good at first. Like back when I started my podcast, I'm like, I know I'm going to suck at this, but I know that after I keep putting in my reps, I'm going to get better and better. And I think it's really easy when we start something new to think like, oh my gosh, if I'm not good at this instantly, then it's not the right thing for me. And I'm always reminding myself of that, and reminding women in my community of that too, that it's like, it's a simple concept to know that, of course, you're not going to be great at something when you first start. But for women, that might be listening to this podcast that are successful in their career past, or you've crushed it at something else, we know not to, compare ourselves to other people, but it's often this challenging perspective to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to being new at something versus the version of you who crushes it at something else, whether that's switching your career path or whatever. So I'm just reminding myself that constantly, because I like to try things all the time, which means I have to get really okay with not being good at it at first. And it's easy to say, but it's harder to actually practice when you have crushed it at something else before. So that's another, these little Post-it notes, they're actually like lined up all against my mirror, because I just have all these random reminders to myself that I feel like other women
keep them?
Oh, I keep them. Oh yeah. I have a ton of Post-it notes of things like that. Just because I think it's really powerful reminders, and I need them in different seasons of my life for sure.
Yeah, we all do. And I want to ask you to circle back to when you were talking about, when I asked you the question, and you were talking in the beginning about, there's these series of things that you do every day when you're showing up in your life. Do you have a specific because I always tell people, like, you don't have to have a morning routine to have an amazing kick-ass life. You don't. You have to figure out what works for you.
Yes.
But I am curious about what people's routines look like and their rituals. Do you have something that you start your day with that helps with this?
Yeah. I also think that the nighttime routine has even been more crucial for me, because I have to focus on getting more sleep and then turning my brain off, because I feel like my brain, and maybe someone could connect with this that's listening, I feel like I've got a lot of squirrels in my brain all the time that are just like ready to party. So I need to calm them down so I can sleep.
Think anybody would have guessed that listening to
you. So in the morning, like something that I'm always focusing on doing first thing is I'm trying to move my body within an hour, because of this energy that I want to be the type of energy that I want to see in the world. I want to create this energy, but I also have to use it as a way to almost manage anxiousness that can come up.
I'm the same way.
So I have to move like within the first hour. But what's also been really helpful for me is at night, my fiance, Sina, and we have a dog, and we go for a walk downtown. And we've done this for years and years. Every single night when we're kind of calming down, we don't bring our phones. We go for a walk at night and just kind of use that time to reconnect and then just decompress before actually going to bed. So it's movement in the morning. And then that unplugged, like not within an arm's length distance of my phone, time that's blocked out proactively on my calendar to connect with the person that I want to connect most with. And I think for women that are constantly pouring out into other people, it's like, I have to be really, really intentional about creating those spaces where I can disconnect from pouring into other people and just kind of be present where my feet are. And then also know what type of energy that I want to have for the day. And both of those come from that morning movement and that evening movement. So I'm not someone who journals for a really long time in the morning or has some like really like 8-step process, but I do things like I look at the habits that I have that are already existing, and I ask myself how I can stack something on top of that can, contribute to my overall happiness. So for example, brushing my teeth in the morning. Every single morning, I'm going to brush my teeth, obviously. So I'm brushing my teeth and I'm thinking proactively about what I'm most excited about for the day ahead. So it's almost like I'm priming my brain to get excited. I'm thinking about like anything that I could run into that, might throw me a curveball and how I could proactively prepare for that. So I'm literally just taking that time every single day to think about what's happening throughout the day. So that's a tiny little thing that anyone can do. And I like it with brushing your teeth because it's a trigger that you're always going to have. In the evening, I do the same thing when I'm brushing my teeth, where I'm thinking about what I'm proud of myself for that day. And I try not to attach it just to accomplishments, but like how I showed up in a way that was very like true to me, or how I said no to something that didn't feel like it was the right decision for me. Because just practicing feeling gratitude for myself and how I'm showing up in the world, that's been a really powerful way to help build confidence, but also to keep the type of energy that I want to have, where I'm like sandwiching my days, feeling like I get to focus on myself.
Okay. And I love that you said that, I'm not someone that journals for pages and pages every day. You have to find what works for you.
Yeah, for sure. And some people, I'm such a verbal processor, and I have like a few people that I can reach out to and just really like word vomit all over them. Yeah. Sometimes, there are times when I want to go pen to paper, and that's really helpful for me, but it's not something that I do on a regular basis. And I think some people, that is a lifeline for them, and that's amazing. And it's just, like you said, finding what works for you, for sure.
I've personally found that, and it's taken me a long time to figure this out, that when it comes to highly emotional states where I'm stuck, then that is when journaling helps. And when I do journal, it's not long. And I don't know if I've just got it down to a science, but that's how I do that. And then if I need to process something that's not an emotional problem, verbally is completely the way to go for me. I'm interrupting this conversation to tell you a few words about some of our amazing sponsors. I want to tell you about a company that's been helping me take better care of myself, and that is Banyan Botanicals. So years ago, I had a colleague who was telling me about Ayurveda, and I was really curious about it, but I didn't get into it because I didn't know what my body type was. And there's many things I love about Banyan Botanicals. One of them is that you can start with their online dosha quiz. It's totally free, and in just 10 minutes, you'll receive personalized recommendations to help you feel your best. Problem solved. You'll know exactly what your Ayurvedic body type is, and you'll know exactly where to start. So I absolutely recommend starting there. Banyan Botanicals is an Ayurvedic company that promotes health through an array of products. And right now, I'm really loving their women's support tablets. I keep it here on my desk, and that way I remember to take them. They're on my work desk. They're great for supporting hormone health, and I feel more balanced when I take them. So if you go to banyanbotanicals.com/noise and click the green button at the top to take the free dosha quiz for yourself today, and my Make Some Noise listeners even get a promo code for 20% off your first order, and that 20% off is good site-wide. So check it out, BANYAN botanicals.com/noise, banyanbotanicals.com/noise. You've heard many of the guests here on the podcast who are licensed therapists, and I encourage everyone to go to therapy. I'm proud to have BetterHelp as one of our sponsors because there's so many things I love about their service. When you sign up for BetterHelp, they'll assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. Their licensed professional counselors specialize in things like depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBT matters, grief, self-esteem, and their service is available for clients worldwide. I want you to start living a happier and more fulfilling life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/kickass. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's betterhelp, HELP.com/kickass. One of the things that I find incredibly overwhelming is food. I know, but it's the whole process of it. It's the planning, it's the deciding, it's the shopping, it's the prepping, it's the cooking, like all of it. And this is one of the many reasons I love Green Chef. They are the #1 meal kit for eating well, and the ingredients come pre-measured. They are perfectly portioned, mostly prepped so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying delicious home-cooked meals. They offer 30 weekly recipe options, and I love that amount because it's just enough to have a really great selection, but not too many to where you have decision fatigue and are just super overwhelmed. You can also switch up your plan whenever you're ready to try a new way of eating. Green Chef is the best meal kit, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, which is what my doctor has recommended because of this hypothyroid thing that we're trying to figure out. So, another reason I love them. If you're a pescatarian or you just want to eat more balanced meals. I love using them because I get to cook with my husband and it's not stressful. It's just all right there. We get to enjoy each other and have a good time cooking. This deal that they're offering right now to y'all is absolutely amazing. Go to greenchef.com/kickass125 and use code kickass125 to get $125 off, including free shipping. It's greenchef.com/kickass125 and use code kickass125 to get $125 off, including free shipping. I absolutely love them. I think you will too. And thank you so much for supporting our sponsors, because when you do, that in turn supports this show. I also want to ask you about permission, because this is something that you talk about and you tell women to write their own damn permission slip. So did something happen that made you start talking about that, or tell us about that?
Yeah, I think so often I just speak to so many women in my community that are just like waiting for someone to tell them that their idea is valid or that they should do that. Or if this person likes this idea, then I should actually go for it. And I just think there's so much waiting when in reality, like action gives you clarity. And for me, I have to start something and I can feel this like visceral reaction if it feels like it's the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't start it and I just sit around waiting and thinking about it, I'm not going to get any like momentum at my back. I'm not going to get the clarity that I'm actually looking for. And I think we just spend a lot of time waiting around, and it really bugs me, to be honest, because I just feel like so many of the most powerful answers do come from taking action, and either you like something or you don't. Either way, it's helpful feedback. Either you go for it and it's the thing that you could keep pursuing for X amount of time until you change your damn mind. And I think I just think we're robbing ourselves of so much fulfillment and joy and purpose and all the things that so many of us are like craving in our life, connection, that we're waiting around for someone else to tell us that it's a good idea. But I think truly, like to my core, that every single one of us is gifted a completely different vision, and it's not going to look like anybody else's. So if you're waiting around for someone who doesn't even have the same vision as you to tell you that your idea is a good idea, they're never going to, because they weren't gifted the same vision, which also means I don't think they were gifted the same problems that you were gifted, that you then had to navigate to make you the human that has qualified herself to handle the dream that's on your heart. So I think a lot of it just comes from like, if we can just take action, it's the simplest thing to do, but it's scary because we're not just worried about other people, like, what they think of us. We're worried about if it fails and what they're going to think about us. And if we're not loved and they don't like us anymore. And we're playing this game, but it's like, just go, you have one shot.
Yeah.
So write your own permission slip and stop waiting around.
Oh my God. You need to make like a t-shirt line with all of these things. I love them so much. Well, I especially love this. So let's stay here for a minute, because I have found the same thing in my community of amazing women, and myself too. I have gone through periods where seeking the counsel of other people became like a full-time job. And then I also think this is why people seek out psychics. It's like, I need you to tell me that this is a good idea, or that I'm going in the right direction, or what's in my future. And so a few years ago, I decided that I was going to stop doing that, because one of my really good friends pointed it out. And she was like, Andrea, you always ask us, yada, yada, yada. And I think you already know. And I was like, I was so appreciative that she pointed that out. And it's interesting because I have a lot of confidence, but it as my life and business started to up level, that's when I started to seek out the counsel of my friends. And like, let's be honest, I have some really smart friends.
Yeah.
But do they know better? Sometimes, but why not bet on myself first and give myself permission and just see what's in there before I need, and then see if I need to seek the counsel of other people.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really valuable so it's interesting because there's this other side of it where some people are like, don't worry about what anyone else thinks. Like, just do you,
Right.
blinders on. And I think in theory that makes sense, but as humans, we're wired to want to belong. So it actually doesn't make sense. Right. So it's kind of like having that curiosity of hearing other people's opinions because you're curious as to what they might be able to contribute to make your idea even better, but then staying in line with what you actually believe is true. And I think that's going to continue to get harder and harder for me in my career because a lot of people that have done things that I haven't done yet, where it's like reminding myself that just because they've done things in that space, that I still do know what's best for me because I'm the one that's living this life. I'm the one that's going to have to show up and put the reps in and actually put the work in. So it's like reminding yourself of why you are uniquely qualified to live your own life is because of the strengths and the weaknesses that you have. So someone else can offer their opinion, but it's like, it's listening to your own intuition. And I think that's easier to say than to actually do, but it comes from that practice, right? Of like, when you trust yourself enough that you can hear other people's feedback, but still do what feels aligned. And yeah, I feel like it just takes time too.
It does. It does. And it takes practice and it takes failing and all of those things. I wrote about that in How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. The zero fucks mentality of don't care what anybody else thinks. And you do have to get to a point where, yes, but realize that who do you want to actually give fucks in your life? Like it should be a very short list of people. You know, for you, it's probably your fiance, maybe close colleagues, like, you know, your parents, like, and sometimes it's not people's parents, like they're not on the list.
Yeah.
It's making sure you really know who that close group of people is, whose opinions you care about, and that their opinions matter and the rest of the world doesn't. And that's, again, easier said than done for sure. I think especially for women who are conditioned to very much care what other people think.
Yeah.
It's a day in and day out learning experience.
Yeah. And it's actually what I've noticed that's been helpful for me too, is I don't get too high or too low on other people's opinions regardless. And I've actually been very conscious, like when a lot of people are even like, as my podcast started to take off and I had a lot of people that I'm kind of still in the early stages of it where, you know, a lot of people were giving me a lot of praise for it. I'm like, I can't let people like that are giving me praise even get to my head. And that means I also can't let people that don't vibe with me, that don't even know me, right? I can't let their opinion let me go too low. So it's almost like finding like, what do I think? And then to your point of the few closest people that really, really know me, what did they think? But still it's what I think most, and not getting too high or too low, and kind of finding that like middle ground to stay in my own lane per se has been super, super helpful for me. And then just kind of reminding myself that not every person, even those people that, you know, I do value their opinions, they can't also be the go-tos for every single aspect of my life, right? Like someone I'm not going to ask advice to, that one of my single closest girlfriends, I'm probably not going to ask her marriage advice, right? Just like I'm not going to ask someone who's not financially, you know, in a better place than me. I'm probably not going to take their financial advice. So it's kind of like knowing who to ask while still having those people that are close. And then still, even with those close people, not getting too high or too low based off of what they say. And that's been something that I've honestly been consciously working on too.
I like that. That's interesting, talking about, you know, not too high or not too low about other people's opinions. I also feel like when you're talking about compliments and praise, that is a tight balance as well, because we can, you know, I want all women to accept praise, to get comfortable hearing praise, because many of them will poo-poo compliments, who they will not remember fantastic thing that their employer said on their annual review, but they'll remember the thing that's like the, room for improvement.
So true.
section.
So true.
That type of thing. But, it can be a downfall when you're constantly seeking out validation and, for lack of a better word, get high from it.
Yeah.
And then you can move away. One of the things where I've really learned to check my ego is leaning on and very much understanding what my values are, not just in my personal life, but as a career person, like as a person who has a platform and influence. I got very clear a few years ago on what my values are and revisit them at least annually to make sure that they're still applicable in this season of my life. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, I narrowed it down and I'm like, it's responsibility, because I have such a huge responsibility as someone who's a leader, as well as trust. And that's trusting myself, trusting other people on my team, and also transparency. And that's something I built a brand and a business on that. So as long as I am being true to those values, which is not always easy,
yeah,
then I'm okay no matter what anybody says.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's so, so good. I would just thought of this quote that I saw on Instagram, and I ended up recording a podcast episode about it because I thought it was so interesting. The quote was from someone that was like a meme or something on Twitter. And it said, we should say to our kids, you must be so proud of yourself, rather than just saying, I'm so proud of you. So they grow up intrinsically motivated rather than just motivated to please other people. And I don't have any kids, but I think about that where I even just say that to myself, where I'm like, I should be proud of myself, right? Rather than just waiting for someone else to feel proud of me. And it's like, as women, if we can remind ourselves to be that example, that's so freaking powerful, because of exactly what you said, where people forget about how well they did and what they, received on their reviews, but also just thinking you did the work to get that recognition from the person who said that they were proud of you or that you did XYZ. And it's reminding ourselves to be freaking I'm doing the work to get myself here. I'm proud of myself and I should be excited about that. Random tangent, but it just came into my head.
I love your random tangent. You know what it also reminds me of, and it points to, is parenting yourself.
Yeah.
So there's this clip of Mel Robbins up on stage that was floating around Twitter, and I got mad because they weren't giving her credit. I was in the comments, I'm like, that's Mel Robbins. It's her. But she was speaking at an event, and she was talking specifically about, it must have been a college crowd or a younger crowd, because she was talking about, the thing that no one tells you when you turn 18 and you're officially an adult is now it's time to learn how to parent yourself. And so very few young people are told that or taught that. What does that even look like? And I think what you just mentioned points to that, is saying things to yourself that either your parents did say to you that you loved, or if they didn't, that you wished that you would have heard, that you needed at that time and that you still need now.
So real.
So what was it again? It was, I hope you're so proud of yourself.
Yeah. Saying to our kids, you must be proud of yourself, rather than just,
you must be proud of yourself.
I'm so proud of you. I love because the intrinsic motivation is just that's so powerful, as adults, but it's also, to your point, of course, it all stems from childhood things too, where I'm I think of my own upbringing, and I'm my mom was an addict, and something she did such a great job at is she still really enabled me to be very motivated. And she did a good job of doing the best that she could with the tools that she had to say, hey, you can do anything that you want. And I was very confident that I could be self-sufficient and I could handle things even despite what was going on. And I'm that was such a powerful gift to give to a young child, to make them believe that they can figure anything out. I mean, it's carried into my adult life so much. So it's that was a real big parenting win from my parents growing up, I think.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. And I have a framed picture of myself when it's actually my senior picture, and it was in my dad's house for forever, and he passed away in 2016. And when My stepmom gave me, a bunch of stuff from their place when she packed up and moved out. And that was one of the things in there. And it was actually the same picture that was in our house when I was a senior in high school. And he just kept the same frame and everything. It's a very 90s frame. And I have it in my office. And the reason that I have it in my office is not because I love the 90s gold silk shirt that I'm wearing, which I do.
Coming back again.
But I know it's so weird to be that lady. Trust me, when it happens to you, Kacia, to be that lady that goes in the store and is like, well, I wore this when I was in high school. A lot of hard stuff happened that year, a lot of hard stuff. And every time I go through something big where I have a breakthrough, I just spent a year in like intense trauma therapy for old stuff. And I turn and I look at that picture and I either like salute her or I like put an imaginary like drink in the air because it's for her. It's, it's for my younger self that was in so much pain, that was carrying so much and didn't have zero tools or coping mechanisms to deal with what was going on. And that is my way of parenting myself, is looking to my younger self and honoring her with so much compassion and so much love.
Well, and it's so cool because obviously of everything that you've gone through and how many tools you had to develop, and it just made and now what you've built from it and how many women have been impacted. Like I remember listening to your podcast years ago, when I was first kind of coming into this space, and it's just it's crazy to think how that girl was kind of, and younger, of course, but was a catalyst for all of this change that you've made in your personal life, and how the ripple, more like tidal wave, that has come from all of those tools that you've built. Like that is so cool. So I'd salute her too.
Thank you. And I do feel like there's divine things going on. Like when I write books and things like that, and I get these like great ideas, I don't say this to diminish my talent. And I say it to push people to also hone their own intuition and look to the guides and angels that are around them.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that these tools, ideas, the creativity, the books, everything comes through me from something otherworldly. I don't know if it's God or the universe or what it is.
Yeah.
But it's too weird how it lands in my mind and in my body. So I know that there's something else out there. And I think that we all have it. We have to, it's a couple of things. We have to trust ourselves enough that it's there, just even believe for a moment that it is possible. And also be quiet and still enough to hear it, which is very difficult for someone like us. Slow down for a minute.
Yeah. It's so true. But once you start, because it's just kind of like the universal concept of like, whatever you look for, you're going to find, right? Where once you start finding these little connections that you're like, this makes sense that this happened for me. This happened and it got me into this situation. Whoa, something else was involved with this. And then you start to see it everywhere where it's like, wow.
It's like pulling a thread on a sweater.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Exactly. I love that so much. I catch myself doing that often where when things are, so it's the concept of like, just like life being rigged in your favor or whatever, believing that it's working for you, that whole concept, which we could credit to 800 million people. But like I'm talking about this, but truly it's like when things are going really well for me, I constantly look back at the things that I perceived at the time weren't going well, that had they not gone the way that they went, I wouldn't have the skills or the appreciation or even just the pride of becoming the person that I am now because of the things that I thought weren't going well. And then when things aren't going well, I'm reminding myself that it's going to suck while I'm in it. And I'm going to have that full, human experience of feeling, crying the ugly cry with your snot and mascara, getting in your mouth while you're sitting on the bathroom floor, all that hot mess express stuff. I'm going to have that. And I'm still going to have this subtle, even if it doesn't feel like it in that exact moment, that reminder of you've gone through hard things before. And on the other end, you were actually still grateful for part of this because of what it taught you, because of the opportunities that it gifted you, because of the person that you became in pursuit of whatever you're working on. So it's that dance of really that appreciation, but also this inner knowing of there's something else at play here. That's been such a driving force for me too. So I totally hear you on that.
100%. Okay. I want to ask you one more thing, and it's about
showing up for the why, because I think that we get so stuck on the how. So if somebody wants to start a side hustle, or they want to change careers, or they want to even just start a new hobby or start dating again, we get stuck on the step-by-step process and like, how am I going to even do this? Which, like, let's be honest, sometimes you need to do some research.
Yeah.
To figure out what the first step is. But you like talking about the why. So say more about that.
Yeah. I just think a lot of times for some things, yes, you do need to have basic research, but I think a lot of times we use the how as a way to talk ourselves out of doing the thing that we know we want to do, because we start to look for all the reasons that we don't know how. And what happens is sometimes we start going down this path, we uncover, oh, I don't know how to, start a podcast. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Then you start Googling it, and then there's all these hows and all these different directions that you can go. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. Look how far that I have to go. And we do that thing where we look at where we are now and we look at where we want to go, and that space in between and all the crap that we don't know how to do. And then we just say, screw it, I'm not even going to do this, because we are like, it's more comfortable to stay in what we already know. We already know what it's like to be here. So when I think about the why, it's thinking a lot about like extension benefit of like who else is going to benefit as a byproduct of it. How good could it get? And also thinking about like what problems, like I'm always just picking what problems that I want more when I'm thinking about why I'm doing something. No matter what you do, you're going to have problems. So it's either the problem of staying where you're at right now, trying to smoosh down that uncomfortable feeling that's telling you to make a change, or the problem of having to manage through the anxiousness and the fear that's going to come from taking a leap to do something that you're not actually sure how to do it or how it could pan out. And, every single positive thing has those negative things to it too. And every single level is going to have different problems. We all know this, but it's like when you know why you want to do it and you can actually get to something juicy that makes you feel emotional, and you think about like how good it could get, which some people are really motivated by that, or how bad it could be if you don't do it, and you get to the end with all of these shoulda, woulda, couldas, and wish that you would have had a different life that you didn't even have. I'm like, you got to just get yourself to start. So when you can pull at something emotional, I can always get myself to start. When I get in the how and the step 1, step 2, that's not fun. It doesn't make me like feel emotionally called to want to show up. But when I dig into the why and I can really like attach myself to feeling like I'm uniquely gifted to do this and I will figure out any how along the way, then it just pulls me to want to show up. Versus going into that logical side of my brain that has to be so systematic that doesn't yank at my heartstrings. And a lot of things we're not going to know how to do. And then once you start figuring out what you don't know, you realize there's so much more that you don't know. And it's like, oh,
the kicker.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'll write a book. Like, oh, how do I write a book? Okay. I'm going to do this later. Right. I mean, I'm doing that in real time. So it's like, it's like, if you know why you're doing it, you can figure anything out. You can. And I mean, especially for people, I'm not a parent, but it's like, I'm sure parents listening to this, you don't know how the baby's going to come out of you, but it's going to come out of you. And you want it to badly enough that you're going to make it happen. Right. So yeah, it applies to anything,
I love the part where you were talking about what problems do you want? Because you're going to have problems no matter what.
Yeah. It's true though. Right. Like, and I think I'm such an optimistic person by nature and a very like happy-go-lucky energy, but I'm also a realist in that I don't want a life where I don't have problems, because then I'm not challenging myself and I don't feel like I'm contributing or like I'm not growing. Like think about how much it sucks when you don't feel like you're growing and you're just like floating around. Like I'm bored out of my mind. I want to take a fork and shove it deep into my eyeball. Like it's just so boring. So instead it's like, oh my gosh, I want to grow. So what problem do I want? I want the problem that seems like it's going to be more fun to solve than the problem of feeling stuck.
That reminds me of when I was like around 2015, I really started working on like my quote unquote money blocks and like what was the reason I had plateaued for so many years. Like it didn't make any sense. And I uncovered some stories I had. And one of them was I was afraid that with more money, I wouldn't know how to manage it with taxes and like what is an LLC versus an S corp.
Yeah.
And there were so many moving parts, and I don't have a business degree. Like,
Yeah.
no one ever taught me about money. And I'm like, I'm going to ruin it. I'm going to ruin it. That was the belief that I had. And so I didn't think this consciously, but unconsciously, I did think that. It's like, okay, well, so I'll figure out taxes, and Google is amazing. And so is YouTube with explaining things.
Right.
Tax people exist for this, exact thing. And it was so much easier to just kind of, I don't think I got it all out on paper, but I was very clear about, okay, if this, then that. If I have this problem, then what's the possible solution that I could come up with? Like, I'm a smart, resourceful human being, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just getting clarity on that. Is like, okay, yeah, there's a very real possibility that you could mess up on your taxes. Is it likely I'm going to go to jail? No. Is it likely I might have to pay a penalty? Yes. And actually that's happened. I had to pay a lot in penalties and state taxes last year because I screwed it up.
Yeah.
You know what?
That.
It's fine. Was I mad? Yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah. You didn't die.
No, I didn't. I just angrily wrote out the check to North Carolina Department of Revenue.
It's so true though, Andrea, when you figure out what those blocks are, it's like, oh gosh, it's everything. Like I had told myself a story for a long time that I couldn't have a really successful business and be as goofy and weird as I am. And and once I figured out those things are not correlated, I'm like, I don't know where I got this idea that like to have a financially successful business and, contribute the way that I wanted to, that I had to all of a sudden be like buttoned up and super serious. Like I had to wear nylons at home or something. Like, I don't know.
Nylons. Do they still sell those?
I haven't worn them.
Like in the egg?
I used to work at Ruby's Diner where I had to wear nylons.
I love Ruby's.
So good. So good. But anyway, I was thinking that I had to be super serious. And once I was like, where is that even coming from? Like, what example do I have of that? That's not even true. And I'm like questioning my own belief about this. I'm like, wait a second. Pop the lid off this. We need to just freaking go because that's just a bunch of bullshit.
100%. Okay. We could talk all day long. I am so appreciative that you came on the show. So tell everybody where to go to get more of you. So you have your own podcast.
I do. Thank you so much for having me. I just adore you. So my podcast is called EmpowerHER. It's Monday and Thursday episodes. So come check me out. And then my favorite social media platform is Instagram. It's at Kacia, Kacia.Fitzgerald.
I love your Instagram, and your podcast is fire. You are a mood.
So are you, girl. That's why I love you so
much. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. You know how grateful I am for your time and that you choose to spend it with me and my guests. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hi there. Swinging back by to say one more thing. You know how I'm always giving advice over here on the show and on social media, and a couple of those things is that I'm always telling you to ask for what you want, be clear about it, and also ask for help. So I am taking a dose of my own medicine, and I'm going to do that right now. It would be the absolute best and mean the world to me if you reviewed and subscribed to this show, Make Some Noise Podcast, on whatever podcast platform of your choice. And even more importantly, it would matter so much if you shared this show. Sharing the show is one of the few ways the podcast can grow, and that also gives more women an opportunity to make some noise in their lives. You can do that by taking a screenshot when you're listening on your phone and sharing it in your Instagram or Facebook stories. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me at Hey Andrea Owen, and I try my best to always re-share those and give you a quick thank you DM. And also you can tell your friends and family about it. Tell them what you learned, tell them a really awesome guest that you found on the show that you started following. Whatever it is, I appreciate so much you sharing about this show.